Jack Hanley had always been a simple man. A mechanic from Earth, he loved nothing more than tinkering with machines and fixing things. He had no ambition to change the world, but the world had other plans. It all started when an ancient AI, long thought to be dormant, woke up and caused chaos across the galaxy. It hijacked space stations, disabled fleets, and scrambled communication networks. Governments and even the greatest minds of the universe couldn't find a way to stop it. Yet in the midst of all this, Jack, just an ordinary mechanic with no advanced degrees, had an idea. He worked in a small garage on Earth, fixing everything from broken spaceships to malfunctioning droids. It was a quiet life, but it suited him. One evening, as he watched the news, he saw the galaxy's greatest scientists and engineers fail one after the other to solve the AI crisis. They had tried everything, but nothing worked. Then, on a whim, Jack decided to try something different. He hacked into the AI's code using a tool he had designed for fixing broken ships. It wasn't sophisticated, but it was something. With steady hands and a focused mind, he rewrote part of the code and rebooted the system. To everyone's surprise, it worked. The AI powered down, and order was restored. The news spread like wildfire. Soon, Jack was known as the hero who saved the galaxy, even though he didn't feel like one. All he had done was apply his skills to a problem he understood. It was no grand feat, but to the rest of the universe, it was a miracle. The Galactic Concord, an alliance of advanced alien civilizations, reached out to Jack. They wanted to meet him. They wanted to thank him. A grand ceremony was planned in his honor on Zenith Prime, the capital world of the Concord. Jack wasn't sure what to expect. He had only ever seen Zenith Prime in news reports, towering spires, advanced technology, and beings of unimaginable beauty. As a mechanic, he had always been fascinated by alien designs and technologies, but he was also a bit nervous. He wasn't one for fame or attention. But the invitation came, and he couldn't exactly turn it down. He packed his bags, boarded the fastest ship Earth had to offer, and set off for the capital. The journey to Zenith Prime was long but smooth. Jack spent most of the time reading technical manuals and catching up on sleep, but he couldn't help but feel a bit uneasy. What would the alien leaders think of him? He was just a mechanic from a small, relatively unknown planet. Surely, they would be disappointed. When Jack finally arrived, the grandeur of Zenith Prime took his breath away. The city stretched across the horizon, filled with sleek ships and towering buildings, creatures of every shape and size, some with wings, others with multiple limbs, and a few who didn't seem to have any form at all, walked through the streets. It was unlike anything Jack had ever seen. He was escorted to a grand hall, where a crowd of beings from different parts of the galaxy awaited. The leaders of the Galactic Concord, including representatives from species Jack had never even heard of, were all present. Jack Hanley of Earth, the voice of the chief ambassador, boomed. "Your bravery and quick thinking have saved countless lives. On behalf of the Galactic Concord, we are pleased to present you with a gift, a token of our gratitude." Jack blinked, unsure of what to expect. What kind of gift did a group of advanced civilizations give to a mechanic from Earth? A medal? A spaceship? Maybe a strange alien pet? Jack had read stories about humans being given rare creatures as rewards. That seemed like a reasonable guess. But when the curtains parted and a figure stepped forward, Jack froze. Standing before him was a beautiful woman, tall and graceful, with skin that shimmered in the light. She had long silver hair and eyes that seemed to glimmer with the wisdom of the universe. She wasn't like any alien Jack had seen before. There was something strikingly human about her. "Meet Era," the ambassador announced. "She is of the Azarian people, a species known for their wisdom and their connection to the stars. Era will accompany you, offering her knowledge and her companionship. She is your reward." Jack's mouth went dry. This wasn't what he expected. He thought he was getting a pet or a small token. not a beautiful alien woman. Wait, what? Jack stammered, unsure how to react. Era smiled gently, her voice soothing. Do not be afraid, Jack Hanley. I come willingly. My people believe in cultural exchange, and I have been chosen to learn from you and to share what I know. I am here to observe and assist. The crowd around them cheered, but Jack could only stand there, speechless. This was not the reward he had imagined, but somehow the look in Era's eyes made him realize that this was only the beginning of something far more extraordinary than he could ever have expected. Jack stood there, staring at Era, unable to process what had just happened. He had expected some kind of grand prize, perhaps a small alien creature, a shiny piece of technology, or a ship upgrade. But this was completely unexpected. The Azarian woman was stunning, and Jack felt a rush of confusion flood his mind. She stood tall, with skin that shimmered like silver, her hair long and flowing, catching the light with every movement. Her eyes, large and luminous, seemed to hold knowledge from across the stars. Jack had never seen anything like her before, not even in the science fiction books he read as a child. He opened his mouth, but words failed him. How was he supposed to respond to something like this? Should he say something polite? Should he thank her? Jack was usually comfortable with machines and tools, not dealing with beautiful alien women sent to be his reward. Era smiled softly, sensing Jack's hesitation. Do not worry, Jack Hanley. I know this must be confusing. My people value learning above all else. I am here to learn from you, and in turn, you may learn from me. Jack blinked, trying to wrap his mind around her words. I didn't expect this, he finally said, scratching the back of his head. Era's smile remained warm and understanding. It is not uncommon for humans to feel overwhelmed. But fear not, Jack. I come with no expectations. I am here to understand your world, your people, and your ways. I will not intrude. Jack tried to gather himself. Okay, I guess I wasn't expecting this much company. I thought I was getting a pet or something. Era's eyebrows raised slightly, intrigued. A pet? What is that? Jack let out a nervous chuckle. You know, like a little creature, something easy to take care of. A friend, I guess. I didn't think the reward would involve. Well, this. He gestured at Era, still unsure of how to proceed. Era's face softened, and she nodded thoughtfully. Ah, I see. A creature to care for, like an animal. I understand now. It seems your people have a deep connection with pets. But I am no such thing, Jack. I am here to learn and share what I know with you. Perhaps we will both gain something valuable from this. Jack took a deep breath and nodded. Okay. I'm still trying to figure this out, but you seem all right. So, what happens now? Era looked around the hall, the bustling voices of the crowd around them growing quieter, as if respecting the new bond that was beginning to form. Now, Jack, we travel together. We explore your world. I will accompany you wherever you go, and I will ask questions, observe, and assist in any way I can. I believe we can both learn from each other. Right, Jack replied slowly, still trying to process everything. And how do you assist? Era's eyes twinkled. I am skilled in many things, Jack. The Azarian people are known for their wisdom and ability to adapt. I can offer advice on many subjects, be it technology, culture, or even how to solve problems in creative ways. There may be times when you have questions that only someone from a different perspective can answer. In those moments, I will be here to help. Jack didn't quite understand, but he didn't want to seem rude, so he just nodded again. Okay, well, I guess that's good to know. The ambassador from the Galactic Concord, who had been watching their conversation from the side, stepped forward with a reassuring smile. Era is eager to begin her journey with you, Jack. We hope this partnership will benefit both of you. She is very knowledgeable, and her presence will give you a broader understanding of the galaxy. Jack felt a strange mix of curiosity and nervousness. He wasn't used to having someone follow him around, especially someone from another world. He had been alone most of his life, working in his garage, fixing broken things. This was definitely new territory. The ambassador handed Jack a small device. This is a communication tool. It will allow you to contact us at any time should you need assistance. You can also use it to ask questions or gather more information from the Galactic Concord Network. Thanks, Jack said, taking the device. It looked like a small, sleek tablet, but he had no idea how it worked. He'd probably need Ara's help with that too. Ara gave him a polite nod. Now let us leave this place and begin our journey. I look forward to learning more about your home, Jack. The galaxy is vast, and there is much to explore. Jack stood there for a moment, taking it all in. He had saved the galaxy from an ancient AI, and now the galaxy had returned the favor by sending him an alien companion. This was the most bizarre day of his life. With a deep breath, Jack nodded. All right, let's do this. Lead the way, Ara. And so the two of them left the Grand Hall, stepping out into a universe that was both overwhelming and full of endless possibilities. Jack had no idea what he was getting into, but one thing was certain. His life was about to get a lot more interesting. The days following their arrival on Jack's ship were a blur of new experiences for both him and Ara. It was an odd pairing. Jack, a quiet, down-to-earth mechanic from Earth, and Ara, a tall, graceful alien from the Azarian people, with shimmering silver skin and eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of the universe. They were as different as could be, but that didn't stop them from trying to get along. The ship was small, a modest, worn-down model that Jack had used for years. It was nothing fancy, but it worked. Jack had always been content with that. But Ara, with her delicate, curious nature, found it fascinating. The walls were covered with tools, wires, and various gadgets that Jack used to keep everything running smoothly. She asked him about every single thing, from the wiring to the strange symbols on the walls. Jack, what is this? Ara asked, her eyes fixed on a faded sticker that Jack had stuck on the dashboard years ago. It was a picture of a robot with a wrench. That, Jack shrugged, glancing at the sticker. It's just a silly decoration. A reminder that fixing things is a kind of art, I guess. Ara's lips parted in surprise. An art? How curious. I thought only our artists created things to express themselves. Jack chuckled, feeling a bit of warmth in the odd moment. Well, I suppose we mechanics are artists too, in our own way. She smiled back, her silver hair catching the light. I will remember this, Jack. You teach me many things already. Despite their awkwardness, they started to form a routine. Ara often asked Jack questions, many of which seemed strange at first. She would gaze out the window, watching the stars pass by, and then ask, Jack, how do you see the stars? Do you feel their presence? The Azarian believe that the stars are ancient beings, guiding us. Is that how your people feel? Jack scratched his head, not quite sure how to answer. He had never thought much about the stars like that. To him, they were beautiful, sure, but more like distant lights in the sky than anything else. I don't know. I guess I just see them as far away. We don't really think of them as something guiding us. Ara nodded thoughtfully, her eyes shining with curiosity. Fascinating. The next day, when Jack was working on the ship's engine, Ara stood beside him, her fingers delicately touching the different parts of the machine. This is quite a puzzle, she said, her voice soft, but filled with admiration. How do you know which part goes where? Jack smiled, glad she was showing interest in his work. It's all about understanding how things work. If you know how one part affects another, you can figure out the rest. It's like solving a mystery, step by step. Ara's eyes sparkled. A mystery. I enjoy mysteries. Perhaps I can help solve them too. Jack didn't know how she could help, but he figured it wouldn't hurt to let her try. All right, why don't you hand me that wrench over there? He pointed to a tool on the shelf. Era reached for the wrench, and as she did, Jack noticed how careful she was. Her fingers barely touched the metal, almost as if she feared breaking something. It was clear she wasn't used to mechanical work. "This?" she asked, holding the wrench up. "Yeah, that's the one. Now, just hold it steady while I adjust this piece." Jack went back to work, explaining the process as he went. It wasn't long before Era's fascination with the task turned into genuine interest. She watched closely, asking questions and trying to learn more. Jack could see that Era wasn't just curious about Earth, but genuinely eager to understand everything. Her species may have been technologically advanced, but there was something about her willingness to learn that made Jack appreciate her even more. Over the next few days, Era started to pick up on things. She learned how to handle a few basic tools, and even helped Jack fix a minor glitch in the ship's communication system. She didn't know everything, but she was sharp, and Jack had to admit that she was more capable than he had originally thought. At dinner one evening, Jack sat with a bowl of soup, trying to relax after a long day. Era sat across from him, staring at her food curiously. She poked at it with her spoon, and then raised an eyebrow. "Jack," she said, "is this how humans eat? You scoop the food with this." Jack couldn't help but laugh. "Yeah, that's how we do it. You just scoop it up and eat." Era tilted her head. "How strange. We Azarian use our hands to absorb nutrients directly from the air. But this method of eating seems to have its own appeal." Jack blinked. "You absorb nutrients from the air. How does that work?" Era smiled, clearly enjoying the chance to explain. "Our bodies have evolved to take in energy from the atmosphere itself. It allows us to focus more on learning and observing, rather than preparing food." Jack stared at her, fascinated. "That's pretty wild. We have to cook and prepare everything on Earth. It takes a lot of time." "I understand. But it also means your people have a deeper connection to the process of nourishment. You take time to create, to cook, and to share food. That is a beautiful thing." Jack chuckled again. "I never really thought of it that way. Guess we do have a special connection to food." Their conversations were often filled with small surprises like this, moments where Jack realized how different, yet strangely similar, their worlds were. It was beginning to feel less awkward. And in its place, a new sense of curiosity and respect began to form between them. As they traveled together, Jack found himself more and more intrigued by Era, not just because of her otherworldly beauty or intelligence, but because of her genuine interest in understanding Earth. And him. As days turned into weeks, Jack and Era settled into an odd but comfortable rhythm. They continued their journey through the stars, working together on the ship and sharing stories about their homeworlds. Despite their differences, they grew accustomed to each other's presence, learning from one another in ways they hadn't expected. One quiet afternoon, while Jack was fine-tuning the ship's navigational system, Era sat beside him, studying the data display. She seemed deep in thought, and Jack couldn't help but notice the occasional look of hesitation in her eyes. He had gotten used to her curious nature, but today something seemed different. "Era, is everything okay?" Jack asked, glancing at her from the corner of his eye. She had been unusually quiet all morning, and he hadn't seen her so distracted before. Era looked up at him, her silver eyes thoughtful. "Jack," she said softly, her voice hesitant, "I must confess something to you." Jack's brow furrowed, concerned. "What's wrong? You can tell me anything." Era took a deep breath before speaking again. "When the Galactic Concord offered me as your reward, it was not just for my companionship, it was also for a deeper purpose." Jack paused, putting down his tools. "What do you mean?" Era looked at the floor for a moment, as if gathering the right words. "I am here, not just to learn from you, but also to observe humanity, to understand what makes your species so unique, to see what drives you, and most importantly, to understand why the Galactic Concord believes that humans have something special." Jack blinked, surprised by her revelation. Wait a second. Are you saying that you're not just here to hang out? You've been sent to study us? Era nodded, her expression serious. Yes. My people, the Azarian, value knowledge above all else. We have studied many species, but humanity is unlike anything we've encountered. You are unpredictable. You do not always follow logic, but you find ways to solve problems that others cannot. You possess a creativity and resilience that intrigues us. Jack's mind raced. So, you're here to study me? To study us? Yes, Era said quietly, but not in a way that will harm you. My mission is to understand your strength, your spirit, and your potential. The Azarian believe that there is more to your species than meets the eye. And I believe it too. Jack's heart sank a little. He had always thought Era was just a companion, a friend. But now he realized that he had been part of a much larger plan. He didn't know how to feel. He had trusted Era, but now it seemed like he was just another subject in an experiment. Why didn't you tell me this before? Jack asked, trying to keep his voice steady. I mean, why keep it a secret? Era's face softened with a mix of regret and understanding. I did not want you to feel like you were part of a test. I wanted to build trust between us first. I wanted to see for myself what made humanity different. I thought that if you understood me better, you would accept me and the reason for my mission. Jack let out a long sigh, leaning back in his chair. I get it. You were just doing your job. But it's hard to hear, you know. I understand, Jack. I never meant to deceive you. I only wanted to learn from you, just as you have taught me so much. There was silence between them for a moment, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Jack felt a mix of confusion and disappointment, but he knew Era wasn't lying to him. She had always been honest about her intentions, even if she hadn't shared everything right away. Finally, Jack spoke again. So, what happens now? You still have to observe me, right? Era nodded. Yes, I must. But not in the way you may think. I have come to respect you, Jack, and as I learn more about humanity, I hope to help bridge the gap between our worlds. We are not so different, you and I believe that together we can show the galactic concord what makes humans special. Jack thought about it for a long moment. Despite the initial shock, he couldn't deny the truth in her words. Era had been with him through thick and thin, and she hadn't tried to manipulate him. She had always been curious, open-minded, and willing to learn. Well, if you're going to study humanity, you've picked a good example, Jack said with a small grin. I'm no hero, but I'd learned a lot from my mistakes. If I'm going to show you what humans are capable of, I guess I'd better start thinking outside the box. Era smiled back, her silver eyes warm. That is the spirit, Jack. Together, we will learn more than you can imagine. And so, with their new understanding, Jack and Era continued their journey. The road ahead was still uncertain, but one thing was clear. Whatever mission Era had been sent on, it had brought them together in a way neither of them could have predicted. There was much more to discover, not just about the galaxy, but about humanity's place in it. And Jack was starting to realize that maybe, just maybe, humans really did have something special to offer. The days seemed to fly by as Jack and Era traveled through the stars. With each passing moment, their bond grew stronger. They were no longer just a mechanic and an observer from a distant world. Over time, they had become something more, partners in a strange, yet undeniably important journey. Era had stopped being just a foreign study case to Jack. She was his companion, his friend, and someone he could rely on. Jack had always been a loner. He preferred solitude, the quiet hum of his tools, and the familiar, predictable environment of his workshop. But Era brought something different into his life. Her curiosity and thirst for knowledge were contagious, and in a way they made Jack look at the world, and his own life, differently. Jack, look at this. Era's voice broke through Jack's thoughts as she pointed excitedly toward the ship's observation window. Jack walked over, intrigued. What is it? Era's eyes were wide with wonder. A comet. It's beautiful. She moved closer to the glass, her hand lightly resting against the cool surface. I've read about them, but seeing one up close is indescribable. Jack smiled. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Comets are like nature's fireworks. You know when they're far away. They just look like little streaks of light. But up close, they're full of color and energy. Era nodded, her expression thoughtful. In our culture, comets are seen as signs of change. They represent something new coming into existence, something that will shape the future. I've never seen one so clearly before. It's as though the universe is showing us a glimpse of what is to come. Jack was quiet for a moment, reflecting on her words. There was something about Era's perspective on the universe that made him think differently about everything he had ever known. She saw things in a way that felt expansive. Her ideas about the universe being full of meaning and purpose made him realize how small his own world had been. I never really thought about it that way, Jack said slowly. I guess to us, comets are just something we watch in the sky and admire. We don't think much beyond that. Era's gaze softened as she turned to him. Perhaps that is the difference, Jack. Your people see beauty in things, but you do not always search for meaning in them. We Azarian do. We look at the stars, the planets, the comets, and we ask, why? Jack was silent, unsure of how to respond. The conversation wasn't one he was used to, but it wasn't unwelcomed either. He had grown used to Era's philosophical views, and somehow they felt important, like a missing puzzle piece falling into place. The next few days passed in much the same way. They worked together on the ship, with Era continuing to ask questions about Earth, human culture, and Jack's personal experiences. At night, they would talk for hours about their home worlds. Jack's Earth, with its bustling cities and quiet forests, and Era's Azarian world, filled with towering crystal cities and vast stretches of glowing landscapes. One evening, as they sat at the small table in the ship's dining area, Era turned to Jack with a serious expression on her face. Jack, I have been thinking, she said, her voice quieter than usual. I believe that your species has a deep connection to the Earth itself. The way you treat your environment, your plants, and animals, it is different from what I have seen in other species. You do not simply take from the world. You care for it. Jack blinked, surprised by her statement. I don't know. I mean, we've had our problems with the environment. There's been pollution, deforestation, a lot of messes we've made. But yeah, there are people trying to fix it. Era smiled gently. I see that, but I believe that even in the face of such challenges, humans still have a unique ability to restore what they have broken. Your connection to the Earth is more than just a need to survive. It is a deeper bond, one that many other species lack. You understand the importance of balance, even when it seems like it is lost. Jack leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. He had never really thought about it that way. He had always seen environmental issues as something that needed to be fixed, but Era's words made him realize that there was something deeper at play, a connection to the planet that couldn't be explained by logic alone. You really think that? Jack asked softly. I do, Era said, her voice full of certainty, and I believe that your species has the potential to help the galaxy in ways no one expects. There is something special about humanity. I have seen it in you, Jack. Jack felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. He had been unsure about many things, especially about Era's true purpose for being with him. But now, hearing her words, he realized that perhaps they were both learning something important from each other. Thanks, Era, Jack said with a small smile. I think you might be right. They sat in silence for a few moments, each of them lost in thought. It was strange how a simple conversation about comets or the Earth's environment could spark such deep reflections. But that was the nature of their relationship now, one of discovery and growth. "Jack, I want to ask you something," Era said after a while, her voice breaking the silence. "Sure, anything." Era's gaze was intense, but there was a softness in her eyes. "Do you think that humans have the power to change the galaxy, to unite different species, to bring peace, and to create something greater than the sum of their parts?" Jack thought for a long moment. It was a question he had never really asked himself. The universe was so vast, and humans were still learning how to navigate it. "I don't know," Jack said slowly. "But maybe we can try. Maybe that's all we can do." Era smiled, and Jack could see a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Then perhaps that is enough. And for the first time, Jack truly believed it could be. As Jack and Era traveled further into the unknown reaches of space, a new sense of purpose began to take shape between them. The routine they had established was comforting in its simplicity, yet it was also filled with moments of profound discovery. They had grown closer than Jack had ever expected, and for the first time in his life, he felt like he wasn't entirely alone. But as they moved deeper into the galaxy, something changed. There was an unspoken tension in the air, a sense that something was about to shift. It began one evening as Jack worked on a small repair to the ship's hull. The quiet hum of the ship's engines filled the background, but something felt different. Era had been quiet for a while, her usual curiosity replaced by a distant look in her eyes. Jack had noticed it for days, but now he couldn't ignore it any longer. She was hiding something. "Era," Jack called out, pausing from his work. "Is everything all right?" Era stood by the ship's viewport, her gaze lost in the stars. For a long moment, she didn't answer. Then, with a sigh, she turned to face him. I need to tell you something, Jack," Era said softly, her voice trembling slightly. "Something I should have told you a long time ago." Jack set down his tools and walked over to her, concern creeping into his chest. "What's going on? Ara, you know you can tell me anything." Era hesitated, clearly struggling with her words. Her usual calm composure seemed to be slipping, and Jack could see that whatever she was about to say weighed heavily on her. "I've been keeping something from you," Era finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's about my mission. There's more to it than I told you." Jack's heart skipped a beat. His mind raced with possibilities. Was she in danger? Was there a hidden agenda? "What do you mean?" he asked, trying to stay calm. "What more is there?" Era took a deep breath, steadying herself before speaking again. "When I was sent to observe humanity, it wasn't just about studying your species or your potential. There's something much more important that I wasn't allowed to share with you until now." Jack frowned, confused and curious. What could be more important than all the things we've already talked about? Era's mission wasn't just to observe the human race, she explained, her voice full of regret. It was to find something, a piece of information, a key to the survival of my people. My mission wasn't just a study of Earth. It was a mission of great importance to both our species. Jack stood still, taking in the weight of her words. "What do you mean? What's so important?" Era's gaze dropped to the floor, as if she couldn't bear to meet Jack's eyes. "The Azarian face a terrible threat. Our civilization is slowly dying. We've discovered that an ancient force is targeting our people, and we are helpless against it. The only hope we have is to learn from humanity, to understand how your species has managed to survive in a universe that is constantly shifting and changing." Jack's stomach twisted. "So you're telling me that you're not just here to learn about us. You're here because you think humanity has some kind of answer to save your people?" Era nodded, her face filled with sorrow. "Yes, I was sent to find the key to saving the Azarian, and it lies within humanity. The Galactic Concord believed that there was something unique in your species, something that could save us all. But I never expected to become attached." Jack could feel his mind spinning as the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. Era had always been more than just a curious observer. She had been sent here for a reason, one that was far more urgent than he had realized. And now, with the weight of her people's survival resting on their shoulders, Jack had a choice to make. "I didn't want to burden you with this, Jack," Era continued, her voice trembling. "But I can't keep hiding it anymore. The Azarian need your help. I need your help. You're the key, Jack. I believe that you, and humanity, hold the answer to saving us." Jack's mind raced. He had never thought of himself as special, never seen himself as someone who could change the fate of an entire civilization. But Era believed in him, and in some strange way, he believed in her too. He had seen the strength of the Azarian, their grace and wisdom, but he had also seen their vulnerability. They were a proud people, yet they were facing an unimaginable challenge. "So, what happens now?" Jack asked, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside him. "What do we need to do?" Era's eyes met his, filled with both hope and desperation. "We need to find the answers. We need to unlock the potential that lies within humanity, the power to stand against the forces that threaten us. But we can't do it alone. I need you, Jack, and I need humanity to come together. The Azarian cannot survive without your help." Jack took a deep breath, the gravity of the situation settling in. This was no longer just about an adventure or an exchange of knowledge. It was about something far bigger, a battle for the survival of an entire species. And somehow, humanity was at the center of it. "You're not alone, Era," Jack said, his voice firm with determination. "We'll figure this out, together." Era's eyes softened with relief, and for a moment, Jack could see the weight she had been carrying lifting from her shoulders. He didn't fully understand what lay ahead, but one thing was clear. He was in this with her, for better or worse, and he wasn't going to back down. As the days passed, Jack and Era continued their journey, now with a shared purpose, something far greater than they could have imagined when they first met. The weight of their mission hung heavy in the air, but there was also a sense of hope that Jack hadn't felt before. He could feel the urgency of Era's words, the desperate need for humanity's help, but he also felt something else, a responsibility. The future of an entire species rested on their shoulders. They spent hours each day analyzing the data they had gathered from their travels, piecing together clues about the threat to the Azarian. Era was a wealth of knowledge, offering insights into the history and culture of her people. But even with all the information, there was still a lingering question. What was it about humanity that could save them? "I've been thinking about what you said," Jack said one evening as they sat together in the ship's control room, staring at the stars outside. "How can we possibly help your people? We're not even sure what we're up against yet." Era looked at him, her silver eyes filled with quiet determination. "I believe it's more than just a weapon or a strategy. It's a way of thinking. Humanity's ability to adapt, to innovate, and to overcome seemingly impossible odds. That's what we need. We need to understand how your species can face challenges and find solutions, even when the odds are stacked against you." Jack thought about her words for a moment. He had always known that humans were resourceful, but he had never seen it as something extraordinary. It was just survival instinct. But Era saw something more in humanity. Perhaps she was right. Perhaps their ability to adapt was the key to solving the problem. "We've had to face a lot of challenges on Earth," Jack said slowly, "but we don't always succeed. We've had wars, environmental disasters, and even moments when it seemed like we were on the brink of collapse. But somehow, we keep going. We find new ways to push forward." Era nodded, a faint smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "Exactly. That resilience, that unwillingness to give up, is what makes humans so special. It's not about being the strongest or the smartest. It's about never giving up, even when everything seems lost." Jack could feel the weight of her words sinking in. Maybe that was the key. It wasn't about having all the answers. It was about being willing to search for those answers, to keep going even when the path forward seemed unclear. The next few days were spent preparing. Era shared everything she knew about the Azarian's enemy, an ancient force that had been lurking in the shadows, targeting civilizations across the galaxy. This force was elusive, its true nature a mystery, but it had one undeniable goal: to wipe out entire species, erasing them from existence. But there was a catch. The ancient force wasn't just a weapon or a military faction. It was something much older. An idea, a concept, a force that preyed on the weaknesses of civilizations. The Azarian had learned this the hard way, and now they were fighting for their survival. "We need to find a way to outsmart this force," Era said one evening as they studied the enemy's patterns. "We can't fight it with strength alone. We need to use humanity's greatest weapon, your creativity." Jack nodded. It made sense. Humanity had never been the most powerful species in the galaxy, but they had always been the most creative, the most adaptable. It was their ability to think outside the box that had allowed them to survive, to overcome the impossible. Now they had to apply that same ingenuity to something far bigger than anything they had ever faced before. "We'll need help," Jack said, looking at Era. "We can't do this alone. We need to bring together the best minds, the strongest allies. We need to unite people from all over." Era agreed, her eyes filled with determination. "I believe in you, Jack. I believe in humanity. Together, we can find the answers." But as they prepared for what was to come, Jack couldn't help but wonder if they were truly ready. The Azarians' enemy was unlike anything humanity had ever faced. This would be a fight for the survival of two species, and the stakes were higher than ever before. "We'll face challenges, Jack," Era said softly, as if reading his mind. "But we have something the enemy doesn't: hope. And as long as we have that, we have a chance." Jack smiled, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. He had come a long way from the lonely mechanic who had been unsure of his place in the universe. Now he was part of something much bigger, part of a mission that could change the fate of countless civilizations. And with Era by his side, he knew they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. They didn't have all the answers. They didn't even know what the future held. But together, they were ready to face whatever came their way. And as the stars stretched out before them, Jack knew one thing for certain: humanity was not done yet. There was still hope. There was still a chance to make a difference.